She didn't realize that life wasn't like this for all children. The day after being diagnosed with neuroblastoma, she went in for surgery, and 2 days later she started chemotherapy. It was fast, it was furious, and we were left reeling. Her dad and I were trying to figure out what we could do to help researchers find a cure for this horrible disease. Courtney was at our very first golf tournament in August 1999. She was about 4 months out of her bone marrow transplant. Unfortunately, a week later, a day after her 4th birthday, we found that Courtney had relapsed again. Our golf tournament was to be a one-time event. After Courtney passed away, continuing the Tee Up For Tots golf tournament was very important to us, in memory of Courtney and in honor of Courtney. I had no idea that it would evolve into what it is today. Courtney's Courage is a nonprofit corporation with a board of directors whose mission is to raise funds for pediatric cancer research and assistance for families who have children being treated for cancer.
So the day he was diagnosed, we ended up going to the ER because Josh was having trouble breathing. We were stationed in Okinawa, Japan at the time. They got us back immediately and did a chest x-ray. And by the end of the day, he was intubated. And on the chest x-ray, they said, "Ma'am, we see a mass." And of course, I was dumbfounded. I said, "A mass? You mean like cancer?" 2-ish years of treatment. He just finished in January. We were looking forward to everybody starting school together. My youngest going to preschool, him going to kindergarten, and our oldest going to 2nd grade. But then in April, Katie was having trouble breathing. And of course, my worst nightmare flashes through my brain. And Andrew tried to talk me down. He's like, "We don't know yet. We don't know yet. She's not dying. It's okay. Relax." But a mom knows. And it was the same thing, T-cell lymphoma. At the drop of a hat, I gotta be able to go to the hospital when he spikes a fever. Or when Katie spikes a fever now.
Overseas, the Air Force pays what's called cost of living allowance. All that went away when we came back to the United States. We had to get back up and rebuild our lives one step at a time, crawling, walking, and then running. And Courtney's Courage helped us do that.
Most families, if not all, aren't able to completely 100% focus on their child and their chronic illness. Unfortunately, they're still stressed and worried about those utility bills, employment. One of the things that I truly admire and love about Courtney's Courage is that they provide immediate assistance. In particular, I can think of a family who was in dire need of financial assistance. We're talking to the point where their electric was going to be cut off within the next few hours if the payment wasn't provided. We reached out to Kathy, and she is always so easy to get a hold of and quick. She reached out to the company and made that payment, and the family was able to have their electricity. There's not a lot of foundations that can do that.
So I went to the first golf tournament, and I was a volunteer at the tournament, and I thought what a great group of people this was, and it's just something that I wanted to be involved in. And the next year I went back again, and all of a sudden I was the volunteer coordinator, and now I'm on the board. When I first started with Courtney's Courage all those years ago, we were giving family assistance kits out to the families when they would come into the hospital. Since then it has evolved into so much more. We do momcology dinners, we do sibling events, we cooked the dinners at the Ronald McDonald House. There's so many things we try to do to not only help the child, but help their family and help their siblings, to let them all know this is a journey that they are all on together. And if there's anything we can do to facilitate that, it's our honor and a privilege to be a part of it.
This cannot be possible. Like, my baby cannot have cancer. Like, I remember I asked Dr. Kopp that day, so is he gonna die? That was the first thing that came to my mind. And I couldn't, everything was so dark that day. I can say that day was the worst day of my life, the worst. Being at the Momcology dinner, I realized that I was not alone on this hard time. I realized that there was other moms that are also suffering the same pain that I'm feeling. We had time to talk to each other, to support each other. I feel really blessed for having the opportunity, and I would love that other moms that are going through the same suffering or pain can go out one night and eat and have fun with other moms, even though inside we have that pain, but we can get away from for a little bit, at least for a little bit.
Funding pediatric cancer research is so very important. The funds raised at our first annual golf tournament 20 years ago provided a piece of equipment needed in the Pediatric Cancer Research Laboratory. Through the years, we have funded now 8 Courtney Page Zillman Fellows. By investing in scientists and researchers, we hope that one day we will find a cure for pediatric cancer.
A lot of the research in the lab in the last few years has concentrated on using chemotherapy drugs, not only for their direct effect against cancer, but we know if you use drugs that kill cancer, chemotherapy drugs, you can use them and modify the way you're using them to actually help the immune system be able to fight cancer as well. Graduate students basically have 4 or 5 years to finish their PhD. So you have to have a commitment to be able to fund a student for that period of time. You can't just say, well, I only have funds for 1 or 2 years. Courtney's Courage has allowed us to be able to know that we have the funding for a prolonged period of time so we can have students to work on their PhD. Many of the students that have been funded in the past have continued in this area, whether they stayed at the university or they moved on. Some students moved on into industry, and from industry they've worked in companies that actually have developed drugs that are helping our patients today.
The day your child is diagnosed is what I thought would be the absolute worst day of my life. And at that time it was. The second worst day of your life is when you lose your child to cancer. And unfortunately, losing a child to cancer is a reality for some of these families. 4 or 5 months ago, Maya from the Bald Beauties Project came to me asking if we would be willing to partner with them and with Arms Wide Open, another organization, in putting on a bereavement retreat for families who have lost children to cancer. The purpose of this weekend would be to bring families together and give them tools to help them through this very difficult journey. There would be sessions for the parents, sessions for the children based on their age, and also events that they could do as a family over the weekend. It would also give them an opportunity to meet other families who are going through the same thing. I attended this weekend with plans of helping the families, helping the children, making sure people got to the sessions, knew where they were going for the horseback ride, etc. I gained a lot by sitting in one of the sessions myself. It brought back some of the early days, the grief, the despair, the how am I going to get through this? I think for me, a lot of it was realizing how far I have come. And I really credit Courtney's Courage and the opportunity to work with the families, and this organization, has given me a chance to help others, which is what I really enjoy doing. And I really feel that Courtney's Courage is making a difference, obviously because of the generosity of our donors and our sponsors.